Support for Audacious with Kyone Wolf provided by a generous contribution from Suzanne Hopgood in memory of Frank Lord.
From Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford, this is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. Okay, I'm going to get right to it. A while back, we came up with this idea. What if we invited our listeners and their friends to come do a live show and tell? We would pick names out of a vase at random, and just like everyone else in the room, we would have absolutely no idea what was about to happen. Risky? Oh yeah. I mean, what if nobody showed up? Or what if they did show up, but just sat there staring at us and nobody brought anything? Or what if somebody brought like a stapler and they said, "This is my stapler and it means nothing to me." Okay, end of event. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. But oh my goodness, people came. Sold out show after sold out show. People brought things, they brought stories. It was at times hilarious and also raw and brave and tender. Our third installment of Show and Tell at Willimantic Brewing Company, lovingly referred to as Willy Brew, continued to not only prove us right, but to raise the bar. Okay, first up, Candace Arey from South Windsor, Connecticut, gets us started with a story quite literally only she could tell. It all begins with a couch cushion.
This is not a life-changing experience. My 3 children said, "Hey, Mom, bring your cushion." And I'm like, that's not funny. So I have to replace my carpet because I had a water heater leak. So it took me almost 2 years to replace my carpet because I couldn't pick it out. So my family started to bribe me. "We're not going to come to visit you, Mom, if you don't pick out your carpet." And they meant it. So in the meantime, my daughter and I, we went and picked out samples. So then I brought these samples home and I had sticky notes. Does everybody, or maybe a few people, remember this scene in the movie, A Beautiful Mind? He's in a shed and he has a relapse and he has all these sticky notes and there's no place for anything else. So my home was like this, trying to pick out this carpet with all these sticky notes and samples. And then during this time, my daughter and I, we went to different happy hours. And wouldn't you know, somebody there would say, "Hey, are you the lady that can't pick out your carpet?" Yes, because they met me at all these carpet stores. And then, this is a true story, and then they would ask me for my autograph. And that part is not true. So let's continue. So now we're back to the cushion, right? So the cushion is a sample from another store, different. So this story, it started all over again. And my family has disowned me. So here we are, I have the cushion. Hope nothing happens to this cushion because I have to bring it back to the story. So don't anybody spill a drink on this cushion. So this is complicated because the cushion has to match my carpet and the wall, and it has to be comfortable. So maybe after the program, I'll entertain any suggestions, and then because my family disowned me, you are now my family.
Candace! I have no questions. Next up, Tim Dwyer from Coventry brought up a big, heavy box with a bunch of knobs on top.
This is a piece of radio equipment, was used in World War II, and it was manufactured in 1941, so it's 84 years old, I think. It was used by some people that were known as the code talkers.
Tell me everything.
They were Marines who were, as the name implies, code talkers. They were taken by the military, and their job was to communicate in a code, and their code was their native language. They were mainly Navajo, but there were other Native American nations involved with this as well, and they communicated in codes that were based on their native languages, so nobody else in the world understood them. So they were very effective.
How did you get your hands on this?
I was an amateur radio operator, still am, for, since 1969.
I feel like after all that time, you're no longer amateur, but go on.
But whatever. So, I went to school up in Lowell, Mass, at a school that was then called Lowell Tech. I was involved in an amateur radio club up there, and I decided with some other guys that we should put on an event to raise some money, and we decided to put on an auction, a radio equipment auction. People would bring stuff and either donate it or, I don't remember the exact deal, but I started the thing. And up until a few years ago, it was still going, 50 years later. But this one came out of a storeroom in the engineering department. It had been sitting on a shelf, and I had talked with one of the professors, and he knew I admired the thing. So I was at the auction, and darned if this thing doesn't show up on the auction. Well, having been involved with the auction, I was a little reluctant to bid, and it wasn't getting any bids. And the professor came over to me and said, "Why aren't you bidding?" And I said, "Because, I don't know if it's ethical, whatever." And he said, "No, it's here for you." So I bid, and I got it. So that's how I got it, and I've had it since 1974, 1975. So I've had it longer than the period between when it was manufactured and used and now.
Does it still work?
I actually have two of them. This one I'm not sure. The other one works. This one probably works, but I've never plugged this one in.
So I have to ask about the future of this box. Someday you will be no longer, long time from now. Mm-hmm. Where do you hope it goes?
To somebody who would appreciate it, would be more interested in having it go to somebody that appreciates what it is than selling it for what it's worth.
Hear, hear. Tim, thank you so much. It's beautiful. Give it up for Tim. Now we welcome to Show and Tell Debby Page from Andover.
I brought 100 drachma coin.
Ooh, drachma. Where's that from?
From Greece. So, intellectually, I know how this became mine. And logically, I know how this became mine. In 1997, I traveled with some friends throughout Europe. It was before the euro, so we were going country to country, changing our money all the time. I mean, we get Canadian coins all the time here. I mean, obviously, I had not been to Greece at that point. So, intellectually, like I said, I know how I came across it. I did not know I had it. It was sitting in a jar of coins, a little tin of coins that I had forever. Fast forward to last summer. I was in the process of not only moving out of my house, but going on a trip to Greece with my two children. And this was the first big trip we were taking together after the passing of my husband, which had been 2 years prior. So as I'm clearing some stuff out, and this all kind of comes together, I found a stack of letters that goes back to that 1997 trip. That was the summer that we had first gotten together. And after we, in March, realized that, yes, we were in love, we loved each other, that was great. And I said, and I have plans to go travel for 6 weeks in Europe with 2 other friends. And he said, well, I'm working at a camp all summer anyway. Like, okay, first test of our relationship. So I would write letters and mail them to him. He would write letters and keep them to give me at the end. But they were always in response to what we were doing. I knew from then and throughout our lives together that he never wanted to go anywhere hot. We had our honeymoon in Scotland. We had our 20th anniversary in Alaska. He did not want to go to warm places. So this is literally like 3 days before I have to be out of my house and about 5 days before I'm going to Greece. And I find this stack of letters and I go, oh my God, I have not read these in a really long time. So I sat down, of course, because, procrastinating, and I started to read them. Had lots of moments of tears, lots of moments of happiness, was really amazed at the insights he was giving me from the beyond. And then I came across this line where he said, I'm looking at where you are on a map right now, and I know you're not going to Greece, but I'd like to go to Greece someday. And I went, he never said that. He did not write that, but it was there. I'm like, okay. So then, okay, that's all put aside. I'm clearing some more stuff out, and I find this little tin of coins. I'm like, oh, I wonder, I teach French and Spanish in middle school. That's the tick. And I was like, oh, maybe I have some coins in here I can share with the kids. And I dumped it out, and this 100 drachma piece came out right on top. And I went, okay, I hear you. You're with me. I got it. We're taking this trip, and you will be with us the whole time.
So did you take the trip?
Oh, yeah, we took the trip. I do have a travel urn, and we bring some of his ashes with us and leave it places. When I go by myself or with friends or with the kids, we bring some ashes with us and leave them, take pictures of where we left them. So he went with us. He's still there.
What's his name?
Drew.
What's he like?
Amazing. He actually frequented here. He did start the fencing club around the corner, so some of you might know him from that. So he's got a legacy, which is great. He also, more importantly, has a legacy through my children. They live him all the time. I see him in them every day that I see them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Debbie and Drew. Thank you. Our final story for this segment features another big, heavy box brought to you by Charles L. Perkins from New Haven.
This is a 13 by 13 by 13 inch titanium cube, very heavy, jet black with little fins on top. And this is one of the only computers that is in the permanent collection of the Modern Museum of Art. Nobody in this room has certainly ever heard of this computer or seen it, but Steve Jobs created it, the guy who created the Macintosh. So let me tell you the story. I've been traveling with this for 40 years, okay? So when I was in college, my college classmate graduated and was one of the 2 women who built the first Macintosh computer with Steve Jobs. I happened to be in California that year. I went to a place called Xerox PARC, where Steve Jobs went to get inspired to build the Macintosh. So I was working on that. She got to do the Macintosh thing. So I missed the Macintosh. It was happening right around me, but I couldn't afford to buy one. Okay. Then Steve Jobs gets fired at the company he founded, Apple Computer. And he was so mad, he sold all his stock in Apple. And then he decided to start another company. His company was called Next Computer. And he wanted to basically get even with Apple. So he said, I'm going to sell millions of this Next Computer, right? So he works on it for 3 years. He gets like $150 million. All of the normal restrictions of human beings are taken off. And Steve Jobs goes insane. Like, this is 30 years ahead of the time when it came out. To this day, there are things this computer can do that you can't buy in computers today. So to give you some idea how inspiring this was, back then, everyone was very idealistic. It's like your first love. When you're a computer nerd, you fell in love with your first computer. This was my first love, okay? And it was like religious evangelism. I would go around and tell people how much I loved it. I never worked for this company, right? But as a result of the number of people who had this, which is 50,000, Steve Jobs and I became friendly. I wrote for Next World magazine. He thought I was important, so he'd come over and talk to me. I was not important, okay? But the key thing about this computer is that a lot of things happened in here that you don't know about. The first one was I got this idea that Steve Jobs was interested in creating applications, and back then they came in boxes. He had the idea that maybe you could have a store in which applications could get downloaded on the internet. Now, you may have heard of this. It was called the App Store. That was invented in 1988 on this computer. I bought the 10th of these that were manufactured. The day that I bought it, I had $6,560 in the bank. As a developer, it cost $6,500. It was $10,000 list price, okay? So I became a developer so I could buy it. $49 for FedEx. I had $11 left over. And there was a guy down the street who got one too, because the sort of people who bought this were crazy, right? I mean, it made no sense to buy this computer. It was super advanced. Nobody really even understood how cool it was, but I knew how cool it was because Steve Jobs had come to Symphony Hall in Boston and introduced this computer, and at the end, it made a duet with the first violin of the symphony orchestra. And it was the first computer to be able to play CD quality music and generate it in real time. I could go on. There's 10 or 12 things it invented, but I'll save you some time to telling you that Tim Berners-Lee bought one of these in CERN. And there was an app in the App Store one day called worldwideweb.app. And when you downloaded it, you got to share web pages. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. This is 1991. That's 5 years before Netscape, so no one even knew what a browser was. And I went to San Francisco visiting a friend, and I said, let's take a look at this World Wide Web app. Let's talk to this Tim Berners-Lee guy. And I thought, this is not very interesting because it's just links, one-directional links. And I knew the best way to do it was two-dimensional, so I thought, this is never going to catch on. Okay, but that was the World Wide Web, created on the next machine. I created a web page in 1991, and there were only 12 computers on the World Wide Web. Okay, now that's already pretty amazing, okay? But you've got to realize this computer was only available for 2 years, and yet the people who bought it created all the other computers and all the software you know about. This computer stopped being sold in 1991. The entire company went away in 1993, so it was a business failure, but it indirectly influenced everything that came afterwards. So here's how Steve Jobs gets his revenge on Apple. Apple is within something like 3 months of being bankrupt in 1997. And they say, Steve, listen, why don't you come back and help us out? He said, I'll tell you what, I'll work for $1 for a year, save the company, and then I'll wander away. So he gets into the company again, and he thinks, hey, I could just change Apple completely back to the way it was when I was here. So he throws every product away, and he starts all over again. How does he begin again? He buys his own company next. He brings with him all the employees and all the software and the App Store. And in 2007, when he launches the iPhone, it has this software running on it, and the software I developed in 1989 runs on the iPhone in 2007. There's way, way more history than you realize in this one little box. And this little tool gives you some idea how Steve Jobs thinks. The Macintosh could not be opened by human beings, but people opened it anyway, so he got mad. This cannot be taken apart with screwdrivers. You need this special tool that he invented to be able to get in there because he doesn't think you should mess with his computer because it's perfect. And this is how anal he is. This color did not exist. He invented this spray paint because he wanted this color dark gray, and you'll notice the logo is black. And so how do you know this is dark gray? Because the logo is black, see? You see how black is a little blacker than the dark gray? That's the way Steve Jobs thought. Anyway, I've been taking it with me all the way through, right? I grew up in Connecticut, went to Boston for 35 years, came back to Connecticut to take care of my mom. It's traveled with me the whole time. It still works. There's probably only a few of them in the world that still work. I've got all the original software, all the original magazines, printed articles. And when the factory closed down that was supposed to build 1 million of these, I bought the artwork off the wall. I bought the little presses that pressed the beautiful little Next logo, like connectors, so I could make chocolate versions of it by pressing them together, okay? And so I've got all sorts of little bits of history that even Next doesn't have.
If I were to walk into your home, would this be prominently displayed, or is this tucked away somewhere safe?
It's tucked away somewhere safe, but only because I have so much other computer history. I have a whole museum. This is just one of the many things I have.
If you were to plug it into a monitor, what would you see?
Well, first of all, the monitor is even more beautiful than the computer. They're all a matching set. So imagine a monitor that has a kind of beautiful curved shape, and all the fins on the monitor come down as black titanium to hold it up, and then it can be rotated, okay? Then it's a special display that at the time was brand new, state of the art. All the displays were crappy color or kind of crappy black and white. This display was 4 shades of gray that went along with this color. 4 shades of gray, incredibly high resolution. The guy who invented it got like 17 patents just to produce the display. So it was incredibly beautiful. And when you turned it on, it was like, I can't even describe how beautiful it was. It was like a sheet of paper. Whereas normal displays, you know they're computer displays, but this one, you didn't know that. It looked like it was just a sheet of paper with black on it. So when I wrote one of the very first apps for the computer, I was on the premiere issue of Next World magazine with Steve Jobs. I wrote one of the first apps. I decided I wanted to sign it. So when you clicked on who wrote the app, it popped up a blank sheet of paper, and you watched me sign my own name. And the little dots of the pen went tick, tick, like that.
Charles L. Perkins. A round of applause for Charles L. Perkins. Thank you so much. Charles later offered a quick correction. The box is made of magnesium, not titanium. We're going out with that duet that Charles mentioned between the next computer and violinist Dan Kolbialka of the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. Back in 1988, when this was recorded, most computers could just beep, but the next could generate CD-quality music in real time from digital notes, like a musician reading sheet music. This is Bach's A minor violin concerto. I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay tuned for more Show and Tell. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf, bringing you the third installment of our live show and tell at Willimantic Brewing Company. Basically, a room full of grown adults willingly stood up, grabbed the mic, and said, I brought this thing, and here's the story. Now, here's Sarah Eyre from Willimantic.
Hi, this is going to sound really bad. I am a pretty accomplished knitter.
That sounds great.
Thank you. So accomplished that I have designed knitwear. I've been a tech editor for knitwear books that you, if you are a knitter, have almost certainly seen.
That's hot.
I have opened 2 dyeing companies for luxury yarns.
But by dyeing, you mean?
Yeah, for making colors, not for... and I today have brought the very first thing I ever knit.
Oh.
So, this was supposed to be a scarf. And it started out pretty okay. And then, so you can see, it's pretty not scarf-like.
It gets quite wide.
It does, it gets very wide.
Perhaps for someone with a broad neck.
Right, very broad. So let's just leave it right here. Yeah, thank you. I hated it. I was so unhappy. I was very unhappy. And my husband, Sam, convinced me that I shouldn't throw it away, which was very kind of him. We put it on the back of the couch like a very hated doily. And sometimes I would wrap it around my neck and pretend like, oh, it's not a scarf, but it could have been. And then I put it in a box, and I forgot about it for ages. And I was so happy. I felt so much better. I'd never thought about it until I started teaching. When I started teaching people how to knit, the first thing I noticed was that they didn't want me to watch them. They didn't want me to see how uncertain they were. They didn't want to screw up. And the first thing you're going to do when you learn anything is screw up. That's actually how you learn. You learn from your mistakes. And if you're afraid to make a mistake, you're not going to be capable of learning anything. So I pulled this out of the box. And more than that, I started showing it to my students. People who didn't know me, people who admired me, people who would walk into the room and be like, oh my gosh, it's you. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm taking a class with you. This is wonderful. And I'd be like, don't be so impressed. Honestly, get over it. This is where I started. I love this thing so much. It keeps me humble. It helps me teach people. It helps me reach people when they are afraid. And it made me the teacher I am today.
Beautifully put. Sarah Eyre, thank you so much. I love you. Now, meet Elizabeth Thomas from Lebanon.
My mother was audacious. And since I couldn't bring her here with me tonight, I brought this instead. And I know to most of you it looks like a rusty old pizza cutter. But my mother used this to cut her homemade ravioli. And as a kid, I had 4 brothers and me, very Italian household. And so when it was a big process making ravioli, let me tell you, it was an all-day affair because she didn't make 10 or 20. She would make 150. And they weren't little ones, they were big ravioli, right? And so, as a kid, I'd be there in the kitchen with her. My brothers would be all off, playing football or whatever. And I'd be in there watching her. I was just always so fascinated, right? She would roll the dough out all over the table, right? She'd anoint it with flour and then roll that dough out, right? And I even have her roller. And then she would, right along the front edge, she would very quickly scoop the ricotta, right? Right across. And she'd make a big long, there'd maybe be 10 plops of it, right? And then she'd grab both ends, and I don't know how she managed to do it, but she could flip it. And everything stayed in place. And then she would karate chop it. And then she would take this. And I swear, I thought she was like a race car driver, right? And she'd go, whoa, like this. And you'd have to stand back, right? And then it was my job to go along and pick up each, we called them ravis in my family, pick up each ravi, and I would have to count, right? And I'd place them on the counter here while she did the next row. And so this is inspiration for me. I keep this, I'm a writer, I keep this in my writing room. It's I see it every day. It's just so, my mom, and to know that she touched it so many times, she touched this. And now I can touch it. When she died, I wanted her wedding ring, which was just a gold band. It wasn't anything fancy. And I wanted this. And I wound up with the rolling pin as well. Thank you.
Oh, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Next up, Sarah Santora from Salem.
So what I brought is a gift that my brother gave me. He got into coin collecting many years ago, and he gave me a widow's mite coin.
A widow's what?
A widow's mite, M-I-T-E. It's over 2,000 years old, and it's from ancient Sumeria, and the story in the Bible about the widow who had almost nothing, but she gave from what little she had. It was called a widow's mite. And I always loved that story because when I had worked for Habitat for Humanity, at one point, one of the homeowners who had gotten a home built had gotten on the mailing list for donating. And she turned in $20 donation to Habitat, and the other staff were like, oh, that's terrible. She should have never been solicited. She shouldn't have done that. And to me, that was like the widow's mite, a person who didn't have a lot, but really loved the program and gave it to us. So I was telling my brother that story, and he found a widow's mite for me, an actual one. It's in a little case, so I can't actually touch it.
How do you describe what it looks like?
It is a tiny, tiny little coin that's, I don't know, what was the size of a pea, and it's got a little design stamped on it. It looks like a sun pattern. I don't think it'll pick it up, but I just thought it was the coolest thing, and to have something that old is amazing. I have no idea if it's worth anything or if there are millions of them floating around ancient Sumeria. I don't know. But his coin collecting came in very handy because right about at the year 2000, when they said all the computers were going to go down and we were going to be struggling, he was collecting coins. And he told me, get a couple gold coins, get a couple silver coins, so that you can barter in the brave new world. And I did, and I saved them for years and years, and then I was finally able to turn them into buy a camper van so that I can go cross country when I retire.
Oh, that's beautiful. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Give it up for Sarah. not for nothing, so to speak, but the idea behind the widow's mite, giving from the heart, reminds me of some of our longtime public radio members. Small amounts given with great heart mean a lot to us. All right, our last show and tell story before we go to break is Laura Rosas from Mansfield.
I brought a pair of hiking poles. So last summer, I did something I'd been wanting to do for a very long time, and I walked the Camino de Santiago. Anyone here who's walked it?
Now, for those who don't know what that is, will you please describe it?
Sure. So it's a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, Spain. And the pilgrimage can start in multiple places. One of the more traditional ones would be to start in where I started, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, France. And it's a 500-mile walk from there to Santiago de Compostela. And it's very addictive.
Why is it addictive?
Well, I noticed when I was looking before I went last year, I was like, oh, the people who, had the videos and the lists of what to bring had all gone multiple times. So I was like, I wonder if I'll be one of those people. And lo and behold, I have a trip coming up. So last year I started in Saint-Jean. Soon I'll be starting in Porto, Portugal, with a friend that I met walking the Camino last year. And it's very fun. You meet people from all over the world.
What did it feel like to finish?
Well, I didn't. So I made it 300 miles. And
Come on now. That's amazing.
Yeah, I got severe tendinitis and had to stop at that point. It was very humbling. I kind of showed up in Santiago de Compostela I showed up by bus, kind of feeling broken. You see all these people celebrating in the street, and a lot of them had done, to officially complete it, you only have to do, I think it's 64 miles. And, they're all celebrating, and here I am using these two poles basically like crutches at that point. I was raised Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I went to the cathedral and said confession and had a lot of tears. But to be honest, it's one of those things where everything happened the way it was supposed to, because when I got there, it was what was called the Feast of St. James, like a 10-day celebration in Santiago de Compostela of music every night. I got to see the premiere of a movie about the Camino. So I was basically at a big party with people all over the world. And because you're on the Camino, it's a warm environment where, you just go to a table and people come and sit with you and you start chatting, and the next thing you're best of friends and you're going off to other places together. So although I didn't complete it, I do feel like it all turned out the way it needed to.
Well, I've got an idea. You're going to do this again.
Correct.
So when you applaud for Laura, I want it to be the thing that is embedded in her soul when she takes that first step. You ready? 1, 2, 3. After the break, ever heard someone blow into a shofar?
So what we do with this ram's horn is we blow it. It is used for prayer, to pray with, and to play with. Tonight, I will play with it.
I'm Kyone Wolf. Wow, they're still clapping. That's amazing. This is Audacious. Stay tuned. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf with the final segment of our third show and tell. It was recorded at Willimantic Brewing Company on September 15th, 2025. Stay tuned to the end for details on our next live show and tell. All right, we've got time for just 3 more stories. So we'll start with, she'll introduce herself.
Shalom, peace, and hello. I am Shofar Shoshana, and this is absolutely a dream come true for me to be here with you, Kyone Wolf, on CT Public Radio.
Yeah.
Woo! All right, so this is no phony baloney Kyone. I am here with a ram's horn. This is a shofar. It is unpolished. It is big. It's a big one. So for those of you who are listening and not in the live audience, a ram's horn looks exactly like the logo on a Ram truck. So what we do with this ram's horn is we blow it. It is used for prayer, to pray with, and to play with. Tonight, I will play with it. And I want Kyone to join me. So first, there are a few rules of Shofar Club. You must be wearing a hat.
I'm wearing a hat.
That's right. I'm wearing a hat too. I'm wearing my signature look, which is a fedora. It's a white fedora straw hat with a black band. Also, another rule of Shofar Club, we don't wear bikinis.
I'm not wearing bikinis.
We cover our collarbone, our elbows, and our knees. And I'm doing all of that right now.
I got it too.
Next, we don't put our lips on anyone else's shofar. Okay.
Down with that.
So those are the rules of Shofar Club. We also don't blast the shofar on Saturday, on Shabbat, a day of rest. But since we are taping this show on a Monday, it's kosher. It's cool. We'll go for it.
Is it okay that this airs on a Saturday?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you'll hold the mic. Thank you, everyone. Peace and shalom.
Shalom. Thank you. Shofar Shoshana also brought a beautiful comic book she created. You can see pictures at ctpublic.org/audacious. This next guest is someone we spent a lot of time with here at Connecticut Public, summer intern and Wesleyan University superstar, Coco Cooley.
I brought my worry dolls, it's originally a Guatemalan tradition and commonly given to little children who sort of find themselves pretty anxious. But these specifically were given to me by my favorite high school history teacher and my favorite teacher that I've ever had during my senior year of high school and I'm pretty anxious, and then I was really, really anxious, and he was someone that I spoke to quite a bit about that and continue to speak to quite a bit. And he got me these, and I still have them and bring them kind of anywhere that I'm living. And so they are these tiny dolls, and you put them, if you're feeling really, really worried, you put them under your pillow before you go to sleep, and then when you wake up, they've taken all your worries and captured them, and you don't have any anymore.
Now, when you're feeling anxious and you turn to these worry dolls, do you pick one out specifically, or you close your eyes and just see what comes up?
I try and just keep it even, like a couple, depending on how worried I am, I think, honestly.
Oh, so if you're super worried, you're taking the whole team.
Yes, then the whole, yes, exactly. If I feel like I need extra support. But
you put them under your pillow?
Mm-hmm.
So when you wake up in the morning, do you like swish around to make sure they're all still there?
Yeah, I mean, they usually, they don't move. I don't move so much, so they don't move so much.
And if they did move, you'd have something else to worry about.
I go, oh God, I couldn't even imagine what would happen.
Where do you keep them when you're not using them?
They've been through many iterations of like my home and when I'm home and then every college dorm. But right now in my house, they're on my ledge, the window that's next to my bed. They're right there.
What's the threshold for needing to engage them? Because there is a lot to worry about. No matter what's going on in the world, this human thing is wild. So at what point do you know, and maybe you have a specific example or just a vibe, like how do you know it's time to pick up a worry doll?
I would say I use them pretty sparingly, a couple times a year. Like they're definitely like a last resort type option. So, I mean, I'd use them when I was applying to colleges. Definitely, I found myself very worried, and I used them, I think, the night before my decision to where I go now, which is Wesleyan. So I got in, so everything's okay. But right before then. And then I used them about a year ago, my first night when I went abroad. I slept with them under my pillow my first night because I was just so worried about everything. And it all ended up okay. So,
what do you think will happen to these worry dolls as you age and become worried about other things? Do you think this is something that you're going to pass on to other people?
Well, I really feel like I need them. So, but I guess I could see myself maybe eventually giving them to someone else. But I don't know when I'm going to stop being worried. So I don't know. But it's a good gift to give. I don't know where he got them exactly, but they're very meaningful to me. Yeah, would recommend 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
If you're worried. There's other methods, but this one's good too.
Give it up for Coco Cooley. Thank you so much, Coco. Now, our final story includes one particular word that you can say on public radio, but it's not necessarily for young or delicate ears. So be warned. We bring this third edition of Show and Tell to a close with Gabrielle Zane of Wyndham.
So this, if you don't know, it's a World War II hand grenade that my father brought back, along with a number of other spoils of war, including a gas mask and a Nazi helmet, and he kept them in a box in his closet. And so I'm 9 years old. My brother Doug is 4 years older than me. And Doug is a typical big brother. He teaches me how to catch bullfrogs and shoot BB guns and protects me from the bullies, and he bullies me. And when my parents go out at night, he makes up these marvelous games that we play, including balling up our socks and shooting them at each other with our slingshots. And he turns out the light and he pelts me with those little glow-in-the-dark super balls. But his favorite game is to get the hand grenade out of my father's closet, and we play prisoner of war. And so he makes me hide, and I have really good hiding places because I'm tiny, so I can crawl up into the linen closet with all the blankets in front of me, or I zip myself up into my mother's bags for her dresses, you know, the garment bags in the closet because I'm so tiny. But my brother is very clever, and he finds me every time because all he has to do is come into the room and fart. And that's exactly what I do. And so he gets me down from wherever I am hiding, and he drags me out, and I am the prisoner of war. And he proceeds with his Nazi helmet on to take the pin out of the hand grenade. And of course, I'm shaking and crying and begging him, Dougie, put the pin back in the hand grenade, put the pin back in. When I'm 20 and in college and my father passes away, my mother goes through his things, and she puts things in the attic, and she gives things away. And she asks me to come help her a while later to fetch things out of the attic. And I go up, and our attic is a little tiny crawl space at the top of the house. It's not really an attic. And there's my father's box. And my brother has written on it, Pa's stuff, mine. And I open the box. I'm not aware at the time what's in it, and there's the hand grenade. So I called Doug. I said, Doug, you've got to come and get this hand grenade. You got to come and get this stuff. It's up in the hot attic. You can't have that up there. And he says to me, Squirt, that hand grenade doesn't have any powder in it. It never did. So I said, Doug, you're a bastard. So my brother really was wonderful, though. He helped a lot of people. And he spent a lot of time in and out of the rooms, which some of you may know is 12-step. And so he had the illness that my father had died from. And so I heard stories of him in the rooms and how helpful he was to people. And he was in JC's, and there was a neighbor downstairs where he lived. He would go downstairs every day and help the man inject his insulin. So my brother really was a good guy, but he had this dark streak, and he suffered. So after my mom passed away, my brother was bereft, and he fell off the wagon, and he died 3 years later. And I had to go in and clean out his disgusting apartment. And there was the box that said, "Pa's stuff, mine, waiting in ambush for me." And so I brought it home, and I took the hand grenade, and I put it up on the top shelf of my bookshelf, next to his license plate that said, "Be sober." And every year on his birthday, which is coming up on the 20th, I talk to my brother. And I tell him how I'm doing and what's going on in my life and what's going on in the world. And I talk to him about the pandemic and when it occurred and wondered what he would be doing. And every year when I talk to him, when I finish, I salute him and I say, "But you sure were a bastard." And doing my own work in my own recovery as a child from an alcoholic home, I had to go through my own steps, and resentment is one of them. And I worked through my resentment for my brother, not only of the way he treated me, but that he left me behind as an orphan. And I finally came to forgiveness. And so the year that occurred, and I talked to him on his birthday, I said, "Doug, thanks for everything that you did for me, because I know that you struggled." And I gave him the salute, but I didn't call him a bastard. And I got up to go to bed after our conversation, and I passed by the bookshelf. And then there was this breeze that came by my ear and a thud on the floor, and I looked down, and there was the hand grenade. And I picked it up and I said, "I take it back. You're still a bastard."
I know you loved these people and these stories, so mark your calendar. You can be part of the next show and tell in Winstead. It'll be at Little Red Barn Brewers on March 25th, 2026. Audacious is always lovingly produced by Jessica Severin DeMartinez, Meg Fitzgerald, and Robin Doyon-Aitken at Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford. Enormous thanks to the kind and generous people of Willy Brew, Willimantic Brewing Company, Andrew Matika, David Wallner, and the entire staff there. And these are the creative and hardworking people at Connecticut Public who worked meticulously behind the scenes to make all of this possible. Lucy Nalpathanchel, Jessica Ganella, Megan Boone, Dylan Reyes, Lauren Komrosky, Susan Bell, Janae Spinato, and Vanessa De La Torre. This event was sponsored by the generosity of our friends at Freed Marcroft Family Law and Suzanne Hopgood, in loving memory of her husband, Frank Lord. We'll have a link to the 2 other show and tell episodes we recorded in Stamford and Hartford, and you can see beautiful photos from Willy Brew by Joel Calloway at ctpublic.org/audacious. Stay in touch with me on the socials at Kyone Wolf, and you can always send an email to audacious@ctpublic.org. Peace.
Hey now, what will you bring? You can choose anything. Hey.